Call to order the Berlin Planning Commission meeting for May 15th, 2024. Can I get a motion? Motion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Approval of the minutes from March 13th, 2024. Anyone have any changes or comments? No. Can I get a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The first item on today's agenda, Mike Rotel. Could you come forward and introduce yourself?
Good evening.
Can you introduce yourself again?
Sure. Tom Zambetis. My son Athens Zambetis. Ernie Felici.
You got the red.
Okay. Thank you all for inviting us back. The syllabus I put together, we have 6 items. The first 5 items are just answering y'all's questions and concerns from our first meeting. These were some of the questions that the community had, but also you all had. So, I mean, I can go through every single one, or if you all have had an opportunity to read them, since we circulated a couple weeks ago, if you have anything that you wanted to ask us about it. But these were your concerns as far as safety, because it's close to the elementary school and the daycare, traffic impact to the area, reaching out to the business community, which we have, and how the new Mike Rotel Inn and Suites will help the community, and then does the construction of a hotel increase the residential property values, which was no. So we've got all of these supplementally, and then the last is what in remembrance of Dave Engelhardt, he would always call it the Splash of Berlin. We have to bring copies of Splash of Berlin. And we were very saddened by his passing. And I worked with Dave for 9 months. It wasn't years and years and years, but anyway.
Thank you.
So that's it. That's the.
Well, if you want to just want to walk us through those bullet points, just to highlight just everything.
Sure. There was some concern with one of the community people that the pool would be. Children would be tempted to go to the pool. They could fall in and get hurt and so forth. But the pool is completely separated with a fence from the outside, and the only access is from the inside of the hotel, and guests will have a key card to go into it. We also have it monitored 24/7 with the CCT security system. So, and management is always walking the premises. So the chances are slim to none that anybody would be putting themselves at risk, any of the kids there. The second item is we had numerous discussions with the state police department, Worcester County Police, and the county sheriff's office on how we would be able to help the community. Mike Rotel Inn and Suites can also help the community that we were talking about by giving all the law enforcement agencies that we had spoken to access to our parking lot 24/7. They would be able to come in and help themselves to coffee and the bathroom facilities. And it was something that, talking to some of the patrolmen they thought that was great. They said, oh yeah, we need a place to, get warm or to get a cup of coffee or even relieve ourselves. So every one of them that we had spoken to thought that was a positive for them. Wyndham, as a Wyndham Hotel franchisee, we are given access to online classes so that for our employees, so they will be able to go through learned processes by learning a little bit about sex trafficking and signs of drug distribution and so forth. Very minor. We're not there to do that, but the police officers that we spoke to were happy to hear that Wyndham offers that to our employees and that they themselves would make themselves available for our staff, either yearly or bi-yearly, just to go over some of these items as well. I also spoke with Deputy Nate Pasquater with Worcester County Sheriff's Office, and he offered to provide us training directly to the staff to basically bring attention to us and the staff on criminal indicators, as he said, what to look out for if something doesn't seem right, you see something, say something, but specifically things that law enforcement are trained, and he wanted to offer that to us, which we thought was also very kind of him as well. And then Deputy Pasquater just reminded us, and I didn't know to what extent the 911 call center directly behind where we would be building the hotel is a satellite for the local sheriff's office, the state of Maryland troopers, Homeland Security and drug enforcement agencies. I had no idea. So there's a lot of police presence and a lot of law enforcement presence, which we were just delighted to hear. Did you all want to add anything on the first page, or do you all have any questions on the first page at all? Traffic impact to the area. We had many discussions with Ron Marvell with the Maryland State Highway Administration, and for the need of a traffic light right there where we would be building at that to create a four-way intersection at 113 and Franklin Street. And I had sent him a lot of information that he asked for. He was going to work with the State Highway Administration and get back with us and the city to see if in fact a traffic light at that intersection would work and would approve. Not only for purely selfish reasons, I would like our guests to be able to, when they leave, clearly they can turn right to go north, but if they wanted to go south, they've got to go right to the next light, make a U-turn, come down. If guests wanted to go into the city of Berlin, I'd like for a four-way traffic so they can go straight through into Berlin, which is a quarter of a mile. Same thing on the other side. Anyone from Berlin can just cross 113 instead of going down the old Route 50 Bridge Road and then turning. So, it would make it easier access for us, but also our neighbors behind us and the school. Ron had mentioned how the cars are stacked up Monday through Friday, people trying to go to school, and they're all on the shoulder, which it can be dangerous as well. So we had a good long discussion on that. So we're working on that still. The third item is reaching out to the businesses, directly behind us to maybe come up with a marquee sign. That was another idea that Dave had, is to, add, have Microtel, but also to let people know on the street who would be, beside us and behind us. So we had reached out to these different businesses And, as long as we were in the first position, since we would be doing it, is what we asked for, and they didn't have a problem with it. Nev Properties, who we're buying the property from, they manage the buildings back there. It's a condominium ownership. So they were also interested and excited about doing a marquee for the tenants. If we were to move forward with the hotel, we would be looking for, a local sign company that would help us with a rendering that we could present to the city to see, if they like it and so forth. How the new Microtel Inn and Suites by Wyndham would help our community. Once approved, we're going to employ 14 full-time people, and that's just minimum. That's what the count is now. But as we get busier, we would need to hire more than that. Constructing the hotel, we're going to have many subs, over 12 subs that will be, it'll take about 9 to 10 months to build it, so we're going to be employing a lot of local people for all the different trades. The cancer center and the hospital right down the street, we've been talking to them, and they're all excited that, that a hotel could be coming, and they thought that it would be great to, we would be offering a discount to the families or the groups that would be, visiting the cancer center or the hospital as well. And the other thing is, we heard some testimony last time with 2 people in the community, and we did verify that a lot of the housing in the area, there's insufficient room to have family, friends. So a hotel would be needed for family and friends to stay apart and visit, and then go back to their own separate quarters, as they were saying and joking about. But there is a need for that in the community as well. Only one person really complained vehemently about their property values going up and their taxes going up. Any commercial building that's built already in Berlin, and especially a hotel, will not increase the value of residential property. It would not make taxes go up. And we went to Department of Assessments and Taxation in Baltimore, and I met with a representative there, and they put together this brochure for us, which it's very detailed, but I wanted to make sure that you all had a copy of it. It also went on the website to let the community know that this will not impact their taxes at all in any way, shape, or form. And finally, the Splash of Berlin, just coming up with a new rendering here that will have brick on the north face to add contrast to the rest of the building. So it would be a 4-color contrast with the brick. If you look at the canopy in the front, as guests come in and they pull underneath to check out or check in, we have these brick columns to match the brick, but also brick paving underneath of it as well. And then if you look at the main entrance at the bottom, it's a knee wall.
I'm sorry, is the drawing that's on, is that photo different than what you're...
That's the incorrect drawing. That's the
Got it. I had 2 in front of me.
Yeah, I know. That was from the first time we did it.
Do you mind restarting, explaining this? I
Sure.
think we were all looking at something different.
Okay, so one of the brick samples that I have here, prop it up, put it in front of you all here. That doesn't really want this.
The table's fine.
So the architect came up with that brick, which has some contrast among the brick, but also to contrast the four-color scheme of the hotel. So not only is it on the north face, not the whole building, but just the face of the west front of the building, but also the canopy in the front. We have four columns and then brick pavers where people drive into, which will add more contrast. If you look at the main entrance of the hotel, there's a knee wall which carries the same brick around the bottom. And to the right side, which we don't have a picture of the right side, it just wraps around the east side towards the ocean. But the second picture we have will carry the brick from the face around the west side. So I know there's been some discussion about, we are not in downtown Berlin, we're not part of the old historic district, but the gateway into Berlin. As cars are heading northbound, this will lend the gateway view of having some brick that is accepted by corporate. It was difficult, but we were able to get them on board on that. It's simple, it's clean, it's nothing major, but it adds the contrast or the splash of Berlin that I think you all are looking for. These other two samples are this is what you typically see throughout Berlin individually. So this was a range of color from different buildings. Right. And this particular one is what you all approved for Wawa. And this one, I believe, is what you all approved for the medical office building. So this contrast, we would be amenable to, but we would prefer, obviously, to have what the architect chose, which is brick still, and big expense to us, additional expense to do about 2/3 of the hotel with brick. So these are the three samples that we wanted to bring and to have you all review.
Do we have the elevations of all four sides of the building, or just two sides? One, two.
Well, it would be the west side up against 113, the north side, which is the face, and then it wraps around the bottom to the east side. So it would be only a knee wall from the front entrance around to kind of bring it all together. So,
We don't have a south elevation.
no, it was just.
We're at east.
Yeah, it's just a small knee wall that is wrapped around.
It's hard to talk about buildings when you don't have all four elevations.
Really?
Well, we were told that, this was a conceptual meeting, that, once, if we were to go to the next step, plan review would have all of that, with parking and stormwater management and dumpsters and signs and setbacks and all elevations and everything. So we were told just to produce a conceptual.
I was confused, I thought we were looking at something like. My confusion, I'm sorry.
The image that we're looking at right now,
the bluish gray mass that's projecting towards us, that is what is closest to the highway, correct?
Yes.
And that is clad with the same material on the backside. I'm kind of walking through the elevations here, so that is actually what you'll see going towards Ocean City, so you won't see any brick on that, or going south, you won't see any brick on that side.
That abuts the woods, so you wouldn't see the back of the building anyway.
We're tucked all the way into the woods. So you don't see any of the south of the building at all, only the west and the north.
Visually, the bricks, what we're gonna see, if you're in the woods where you're putting the cladding, or whatever you're putting in the backside.
You're gonna see the brick in front of the building as you're pulling in on the highway and to the 911 center. You'll see it on the knee wall, but there's none in the back against the woods.
Right.
And you'll see some of it, I mean, there's a significant distance behind the building before the woods.
How far are you guys back from the woods, do you know? Ballpark, and I know it's still conceptual and everything.
We want to be tucked into the woods as deep as possible.
Okay.
So all of our guests on the back side have woods.
Also, so that we're out of the way of some of the other neighbors.
Oh, right.
So we'll just, I believe our plan was to just be in front of the 911 call center.
Ron, you have any thoughts here? Awfully quiet over there.
I don't know, I'm just having a hard time seeing any splash of Berlin. I just think my glasses, I still can't see it.
Now, again, like we had mentioned the first meeting, it's frustrating because, we're giving, other than the word splash of Berlin, which I just love to throw that out there, because David's always saying it as well, is that we have no direction. We have nothing from you all giving us specs, specifics, and what percentage and what type of brick and color. And so we're blind. So driving around and taking pictures and seeing what everyone else has, come before you all and what's on Main Street, and trying to stick with the proprietary requirements for, an international hotel. This is what we've been able to come up with.
Well, I took a close look at the Wyndham Microtel in West Ocean City near my office. I drive by it every day. Well, that's a heck of a lot more splash of the area than this is. I mean, this is a cold box.
That's an old prototype that's no longer part of their portfolio.
Well, that's an old prototype maybe they ought to resurrect, because that's got some eaves, it's got some roof lines, it's got an interesting entrance.
We own one of those in Georgetown, Delaware. The interior is very out of date compared to the new prototype of the Moda, which is more efficient and actually more comfy than the older style. I understand the roof line's a little more inviting, I do.
A lot more inviting.
But if you look at any hotel now, from IHG, which is the Holiday Inn Express, Wyndham, Hilton, they're all the box shape because it's more efficient and easier to build.
I hear you, but what you gotta understand is, we're more interested in aesthetics in Berlin than we are efficiency.
1000%.
And, this is not Berlin. This is Route 95, Florida, at any intersection. That's not Berlin, that's what.
What is Berlin? We need some guidance. We need
I
to
just
have-
told you, your place in West Ocean City, that's got broken roof lines, it's got brick, it's got a nice aesthetic look to it. At least it gives a bow to the coastal architecture. Not that Berlin is that much coastal, it's more Victorian, but we have bowed to the coastal architecture, like the Royal Farms on Route 50. They gave us peanuts that give us the coastal architecture. All the other box stores down the road, the county has gotten the stores to put in some coastal architecture, that at least would be conducive to the area. But I gotta tell you, this is cold, man. This is
Well,
really cold.
with all due respect, we're not in downtown. We're on the main thoroughfare.
You are at the entrance to Berlin. Everybody that drives by gets an impression of this town from what we put here. This is architecture, I admit, our code is not what we like it to be. But it directs us to look at the architecture and to encourage architecture that's conducive to downtown. You put some brick in it, but brick doesn't necessarily make it look like downtown.
Splash of Berlin, we were told, throw some brick in there,
Well-
bring some brick. So again, with all due respect, we need some guidance. We just, we
Well, I'm
can't be
giving
going,
it to you.
we can't be going back and forth with architects and engineers, and it's time consuming and it's
I
expensive.
understand and I'm sympathetic, but it made this kind of clear at the first meeting. And now at this meeting, I'm specifically telling you, look at your old Wyndham Hotel in West Ocean City.
That's a 25-year-old model, and they don't do them
Well,
anymore.
that was just built, what, 5 years ago?
No. That's a 25-year-old
No, I mean, that.
prototype. That was built, what, 13 years ago? 14 years ago?
I want to say about 10 years.
10 years ago,
8
okay.
to 10 years ago.
So that's the dilemma that we're in. They're just, we can't, we can't build that anymore. And keeping up with Hilton and Marriott and Choice, they're all boxy, they're all four-color. Interiors is more room for the guests and better flow. That's what we're,
Besides doing a boutique hotel, there's no way, none of the branded hotels have that type of roof line. And it's not that we wouldn't do it if they had it, but none of their prototypes have that type of roof line.
Well, if you look at the Atlantic Hotel downtown here, okay, it doesn't have particular broken roof, it's a straight roof line, but it has, what do you call that, fenestration, brick fenestration? It's got interesting details on its roof line.
But that's a boutique hotel.
Well, it's Berlin.
but that's also downtown. And I'm going back to that. The roof line issue here, we have a height restriction of 45 feet. So what you see is, I think it was 47 and a half feet. So we can't do anything with the roof or we're going to be beyond the height restriction. That's why we were looking at the canopy as you come in to, do more brick there. Trying to warm that up a little bit.
I said my piece.
I've got a question about the parking here. I'm reading at the notes here. It says you have 78 rooms and 64 parking spaces. With a reference to 20 additional parking spaces in the Cannery property, is that correct, or is that?
Yes, sir. So Nev Properties, who we have a contract to purchase this property, they've given us a letter that they're giving us 20 spaces for basically our employees and any overflow parking if needed, because they don't need those 20 spaces.
I mean, why is yours short? Are you short of property there, or is it?
We're short of property because within the woods, we can't develop back there because of some endangered species and it's wetlands back there. So with the space that we have to put the hotel, we have, and 2 stormwater management ponds and signage and so forth and so on, the number of parking that we have is a little short. So we were able to get it from our neighbors from the, being part of that condominium association.
So you're going to own the property?
We will own the property, yes.
The property of the additional parking lots?
Oh, no, that's going to be given to us to use as needed.
But is that in the deed of that property, that you will have that?
It will be in, yes, sir, it will be in the deed. It'll be deeded that way. And again, this is only when we're at full capacity, and it is for the employees. So if we have 14 to 20 part-time and full-time employees, they'll be instructed to park over the cannery. There'll be a little bridge they can walk over to the main entrance. It's not that far. It's 20 feet, 30 feet at the most. But we do have permission and it will be deeded.
You said you reached out to your business neighbors. Did you reach out to the residential neighbors over there?
No, sir.
The ones that were here last time and expressed their concerns about what you're doing there?
We did try to get in contact with some of the people who were here, but we did not hear back from some people, and others left before.
Okay,
we
well,
could
two of
speak
them
with
are
them
sitting
directly.
council people here, so it's pretty easy to find, I think. You referenced the 911 call center and everything behind there. How long is that going to be there? Is it moving to the new state police barracks, or is it going to be there temporarily?
No, it's gonna,
I mean, we spent $27 million out there. I imagine they're going
they told us that they're gonna keep their satellite office there,
to, okay.
but also there are other law enforcement agencies that will remain in there. They're not gonna move.
Okay. And one other thing was the, as far as putting a light there, I don't think anybody in this town wants a light there.
I was
For
just,
your convenience, I mean, really, I don't,
that was a little tongue in cheek. There were people that were talking about the danger of that intersection and so forth, so I spent some time to reach out.
well, they addressed that by putting those turns in there the way they are now. And anyway, the last thing is, Berlin is a town, not a city.
Oh, okay.
And it's Worcester County, not Worcestershire.
Got it.
That's all.
Thank you.
While you're getting anything design-wise, just throw it out there. I mean, we heard what Pete said. A lot of times we lean on the two of you for any design
Well,
assistance,
I
if you
mean,
will. So I'm going back to you for any design, because I understand the frustration, we've all talked about it.
You know, I get where you got
Yeah.
it. I totally get it. You're in this, situation where you're limited in what you can do. I think you understand where we are. This obviously, and I think you would agree, doesn't fit this town, but that's what you're left with. It's not our job to design it. I read somewhere, I can't find it, where the architect is from Texas. Has he ever been to town?
So he built R2 in Rehoboth and in Milford, Delaware. He is the designer of record, so this is his
Nationally?
prototype.
Nationally?
He's the one that came up with this prototype for Wyndham.
And that's a national,
Right.
you'll see this
So-
anywhere,
so-
right?
So,
Is that the
we-
deal?
so if I could speak frankly, we hired Fisher for the direct purpose of bringing in Berlin with, for the property. And
Fisher is, I'm sorry,
Fisher Architecture.
Is that the Texas firm?
No,
Oh,
that was the Berlin firm.
Okay.
And-
Oh, those guys, right, okay.
And it just,
And they're hog-tied, I see it,
yes.
I get it.
So for, we brought in Modus, Moda Design, to help, since they know the building the best and what we can do and how to modify the building.
Within the constraints of what
Correct.
Wyndham will
Correct.
have. Right. We know where we all are.
But he has been to the area multiple times for our properties and knows and knows this area.
Right, but limited
Right.
by what.
Correct, not from here.
I get it, yeah. It's a bad spot for everybody.
And the only thing I'd say is, while this is definitely a box, what was approved over by Pop's Kitchen in the historic district didn't look anything like the historic district in downtown Berlin, but I was told, and I voted against it, but I was told that just bringing in some aspects of downtown materials made it so, I mean, I'm not crazy about this, but on that comparison, I mean, this isn't any worse than that. Not that that's right.
Well, we could argue about it.
I can do that.
We'll do that.
I'll just clarify my stance. With recent projects, it keeps getting misconstrued, I think. When we say Berlin, people automatically think we mean downtown Berlin, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I'm not going to correct what some people say in terms of, you got to reference downtown Berlin, you got to have some brick on the building. I like to speak generally. in regard to the fact that, we don't have architectural standards, and that obviously makes things more difficult, but I don't think this does enough to say we're Wyndham Microtel and we did something different, in this town of Berlin, which I think is what we want and expect for something along the, highway entrance corridor, and I know it's tough, but that's the only guidance I can give without being prescriptive. I've said this before, but as an architect myself, I would think that would be the only guidance that I would want, and not have too much prescriptive guidance, because then that will really pigeonhole you. You referenced last time the potential cost overall of a project like this, and again, coming from an architect, I know, to mess around with the cladding and finish details on this building would be a minimal expense just from a design exploration standpoint in the overall cost of this building. I don't think one option is kind of enough for us to evaluate anything. It doesn't seem like an exploration of options that may appeal to us.
May I make a suggestion to council? The head of construction and design for Wyndham is willing to either meet in person or attend a Zoom meeting to have a discussion on what Wyndham will allow and will not allow to do. If we can either have a representative or someone that you guys appoint to sit in that meeting, I think it might help us lead to getting to a better answer, rather than, because obviously he's the one that can say yes or no.
Right.
You tell us something, we call him, he tells us.
And we can get him and the architect together and have a conversation. Because we want to be in Berlin. It's the right spot to be. Wyndham wants to be in Berlin. And knowing Wyndham, compared to other hotel brands, they would be the most amenable to making a change.
Well, I can tell you, I want them to be, we need a hotel. We need a new
Right.
hotel. I want it. I think it's a good location for a hotel. It's just that it's got to
And we
have some
want,
aesthetic value.
and I think teamwork on this, we can come up with a solution. To try to at least make an attempt to appease everybody's concerns.
Because I think that makes sense, because, I don't think anybody's happy with this.
Right.
And we've always been willing to work with anybody to a certain extent.
And if council's open to that, I'd be more than happy to try to set up that meeting.
You all want to set it up for one time around a meeting, one meeting.
So I nominate Pete and Ron and Eric to be the meeting. Manage that out.
Whatever can help you guys.
Yeah, I'm willing to do anything.
Yeah, I don't think we need all of us.
Just to note, if you have a quorum, it is a public meeting.
So we need three or less, correct?
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that magical number that you brought up.
I mean, corporations just have to start understanding that there are people fighting back against the system today. We're trying to preserve something here and make it special and keep it special, because it is special. And if the corporation just wants to put its box here and wants to give us a hardship story, they're going to hit a wall with us.
Right.
We're not trying to be ridiculous. We're just trying to say, look, give us something to look like the West Ocean City Hotel. If we presented that tonight, I think I'd be with you. It's attractive. It has some. It reflects very roof lines. So this one's a four-color nightmare to me. Four-color box.
And we can have that conversation with him and see what we can do to try to appease some of those concerns.
I understand how efficiency, I get that. But you can take a floor plan and make it look about about like anything. Because efficiency is where your floor plan is. It's
And I
the
think-
face that can change
Right.
on the same floor plan. It happens quite often.
And I think if we work with the town in trying to work on some of the aesthetics, but keep the inside, like you
Yeah,
mentioned.
we're not-
Keep
yeah.
the interior,
You guys do what you need to do
Right.
inside. We don't want to get in the way of
Well,
that.
You probably need a little variance on the height restriction too, to get a facade up there or
I was
something.
thinking the same thing, but Rhonda, I don't know if we have a variance for height in our code.
I don't know. I would have to look it
Yeah, we have
up.
to look that up.
I think this building's designed at 42 feet right now. I know what your code
I mean,
is.
I was-
We all are at 45.
Do you know if there's anything in the areas above where the window line is?
The only thing that's above that roof line
For the,
would be your elevator room.
so is the roof, it's a roof directly above there, there are not power pits or anything? It's
Very
full, yeah, it's
very
not much,
slight
nothing you can steal
power
from.
pits, yeah.
Okay. There's mechanicals up there or anything inside? Okay.
If you could get us, if there is a provision for height exception or variance, I would certainly be amenable. That's what you need to do the kind of things we're asking you to do.
Well, if they don't, they're gonna lose the floor, when they don't, they're not gonna do
I
that.
understand.
Yeah, we don't want to do that,
I-
but-
I'm look- Yeah, I'd like to try to accommodate.
Looking at options.
When should we have this meeting, and how do we go about making the meeting, Bill? The three?
You build it, they will come.
The commission has my email, and I think all of our emails. If you'll want to set it up and then let us know. I get our emails from them.
Okay.
Is there any comments from the public?
Who did you indicate, I'm sorry, was going to be on that conversation?
Eric, Pete, and Ron. Sorry, name and street, please.
Marie B. Long West Street. It seems to me that if Wyndham and whoever wants to be in Berlin as bad as you say, you should go with what we want, as opposed to saying that this is a national deal. I mean, we don't need this hotel. I'm sure we could get plenty there since it's such a desirable spot. And number two, I don't understand why we're even talking about it because a lot of citizens don't want it. So to me, it's in your best interest to come up with something that is amenable to everyone here, or forget it. I don't care if there's a microtel across there. It doesn't do me any good. So, you know, I don't have any sympathy for you. This is our town, and this is what we want. And if you can't do it, then go someplace else. That's all.
Anyone else in the public?
I'll say, I'm from that side of on 506 William Street. I'm not in favor of this at all. I walk over there every day by the school and on Franklin Avenue, and I personally don't want to look at that. To me, that looks like an eyesore. I don't see how it benefits us as a town resident. We have Atlantic Hotel, we have Inn in Berlin, we have Holland House, we have approved Airbnbs, and I just don't know that they're even full all the time. So to me, I'm just not seeing why we need this at all. I'm not seeing the need. We have tons of hotels in Westo and Ocean City, Ocean Pines, rentals everywhere. I'm not seeing why we need this at all. And if you're saying it's not downtown, but that's still Berlin on the other side of 113.
Exactly.
It's a residential area right behind the other side of that. And right now, there's a dentist, there's a daycare, there's a wellness center, and those things do benefit our town. And I would rather see things
Like that.
more of that ilk than a hotel for people that don't live here. My family comes to stay, they stay with me on an air mattress or they go to a hotel in Ocean City. We do not need this people that live here. So I'm opposed to it, and I think it's also ridiculous that they can't make it look like it actually belongs here. And if they can't, then develop here.
Thank
That's
you.
all I got.
Anyone else in the public want to speak? Name and street, please.
At the last meeting, we had, I guess it was over half of the people that here were against it. And to me, I don't know why, if you guys are gonna go with only design, it don't make no sense for us even coming, the citizens coming out here voicing their concerns, because you're gonna do what you wanna do. And to me, that don't sound like a democracy. That's all I gotta say.
Anyone else in the public have anything? Staff. All right. There's a good, get the information on these 3 email addresses.
We will do that.
You guys have anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Steve, you want to join us up here?
Yeah.
My apologies for directing you. The next item on the agenda is the 213 West Street concept plan. You can come forward and introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, Chris Carvall, Atlantic Group and Associates. On behalf of our client, who is the owner of 213 West Street, a property that is zoned R2, consists of 2.42 acres. They've reached out to us seeking some guidance on the potential to subdivide the property into 4 single-family lots. As you can see, it's a unique shaped property fronting West Street that does present some challenges, but trying to meet the infill development goals of Berlin, we wanted to at least approach the planning commission based upon past staff's recommendation to see what your thoughts would be on the layout for you tonight. The idea was to create this subdivision so that Lot 2 would accommodate the existing residential structure on the property. And then beyond that, create one lot that did directly front West Street, but to create 2 lots that, well, it's basically 3 lots, that would be considered flag lots. In looking at the current zoning or subdivision regulations, it does allow a provision for flag lots as I read the ordinance. It does prohibit them in his historic zone, but it doesn't really get into the design specifications for such a lot. It does talk about the minimum lot width being, in a 40-foot range, but from the flag standpoint, we wanted to see the thoughts from this board about creating these flag lots with a width of 25 feet for lots 2, 3, and 4 that would share a common private drive for access. There is reference in the code that says an access drive or alley, and that's what we kind of compared it to, should be a minimum of 20 foot in width. It also talks about the minimum turning radius of pavement being a 70-foot diameter or 35-foot radius. So that's what's illustrated on this plan. Again, everyone for lots 2, 3, and 4 would access the private driveway. We have left room, in concept for stormwater on the southern portion of the property line. I know that was one comment brought up in the most recent staff review. But then, again, this is a very concept plan, very preliminary, before we got into too much detailed work, just to get your thoughts really on the flag lot concept.
Well, I've been here a long time on this commission, and flag lots were always frowned upon pretty strongly because it opens up a can of worms that, while this might be, I don't know if this meets code or not, but it does, the term flag lot is not in the code anywhere, right?
It's referenced in the code.
For historic district.
Yeah, and there's a flag lot definition in the subdivision regulations, but like I said, again, for instance, some places like Worcester County, you will have, a definition of what the minimum width of a flag may be, whether that's permissible or not. It doesn't really, as I can at least find, really state the details in the zoning ordinance for the finding.
To me, this just opens up to, somebody gives something to somebody to point to that has room in the back, that they run a 20-foot access and get approved to build a home in the back of a home, which is not, it's been frowned upon for years in this town, since I've been on this commission. But that's just my 2 cents.
What did you say about the stormwater? You're going to do what?
Well, we left an area, if you look here on this portion of the road, we did leave an area for some BMPs to address, any development requirements for any private drive or increase that impervious area. Obviously, some of the lots could also accommodate some smaller BMPs if necessary, but we haven't got to that level yet. We understand that should any subdivision be or move forward, we'd have to meet that requirement.
Is it, where exactly is this as far as all the flooding issues that are over there on West Street?
Right on the ditch.
It's right on the ditch, so that's right there.
please.
Yeah, I mean, the ditch line is,
The
adjacent to
Hammond
the
ditch?
property. What's that?
The Hammond ditch?
There goes the
Well, I don't know if I got the exact name of it, but
Google Earth calls it Battle Branch.
I
Have
contacted
you
the
seen
USDA
that
Electrical
yet?
Service, and they admit that it's a mistake, and the next version of the maps that will be corrected.
Chris, I'm going to have to give you an Olympic medal for planning gymnastics on this. It just, this is not what we need here. You tried, but this is just a mess. These flag lots, who's going to cut all that grass? You did what you could, but
well, they would all be fee simple lots. I mean, again, an access drive is basically
Well, I
just an
know.
easement.
I get this, but it's all cut
yeah.
up.
Well, there was something similar on Burley Street a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, that they tried. You could remember that? Towards the 113, couple lots in,
Yeah.
backing up to the park.
Do these people want, do you know if these people want that to live here, or they bought?
Yeah, no, they're staying there. I mean, the plan is to retain that house.
Oh, yeah?
It's, to be upfront with you, it's a group of attorneys that.
We know what this is about then.
They come down here and this is where they spend, their weekends. So, again, I think they had the intention to, keep Lot 1 possibly, build another residence there for them, but possibly explore opening up lots 3 and 4 for sale for another, single-family home on those 2 lots.
This is not that, kind of fill that, I know, I've been talking.
It's one of those properties that, and again, if you're picking up only 2 lots, financially, it just doesn't make sense to build, a full-blown road in there. That's, they could do that and create this. It's the expense issue, really, that, prohibits that. We could accomplish the same thing by just coming in here with a right of way, and doing, basically the same design. So, really, this is, they can still do this subdivision, but it's gonna require them to build a town road with a right of way there. It just really, from a financial standpoint, really doesn't make a lot of sense.
It'll take them a whole lot of room to get a 35-foot road in there.
Well,
Pretty much
35-foot road, but, it's basically, gonna be in that, 24-foot range, be about 4-foot wider road. I think you can, let me see what that is offhand. It wouldn't be much wider.
24 residential.
Yeah.
Do they have any interest in trying to turn this into just 2 lots, or is that shut down?
Well, I mean, that's why I'm here before you, just to see, listen, when I talked with Dave, he was open to the concept, as long as there was emergency access to the property, he really didn't see a problem. We went through the ordinance, really couldn't find any clear requirements, so, I didn't want to go in there and do a full-blown plat and come before the town, without determination on what could or could not happen. This, to me, I just thought it would be best to kind of clarify this from the get-go. Don't want to start off on the wrong foot.
Did the fire department weigh in on it, or?
We provided them plans, like I said, we had to make sure we met the minimum radius requirements and the minimum road widths. With that, I can't see that there should be much problem.
Did
From
they
a fire
weigh in
access.
like they do, or?
What's that?
I said, I don't see a copy, did they weigh in on it, or?
I didn't get any comments back from them, but they were provided plans and asked to comment if there were any concerns.
Okay. Well, they haven't.
Do you know what the sizes are of these lots?
Yes.
Says right up here. Yeah. Lot area, right at the top right.
Oh, I folded that part back. All right, got it.
Lot
Thank you.
1.31 acres, and these are plus or minus, because we could, slightly tweak these. Lot 2.4 acres, lot 3.72 acres, and lot 4 is just under an acre. So, it's a big piece of property, and, hey, them coming down the weekends, yeah, they're the ones that got to maintain the grass right now, and it's a big burden for them.
They bought it.
If something like this were to be approved, do you think they would agree to deed covenant restrict? You can't have any D&Ds in here?
Oh, yeah, I don't think that'd be a problem.
You know, what?
No D&Ds, no.
The short-term rentals.
Stuff, short-term rentals.
They're looking to sell this.
I just think, it opens the door to everybody that's got a little room in the back.
Everybody has
If
big
you
backyards.
can run a 20-foot, if you can run a 20-foot access drive up there, they're gonna be all over, so they'll be in there, they'll be crowded in there.
I've had people say that already. How about my backyard?
Worse than the 80s almost.
Unfortunately, the backyard is the school.
Just to clarify, it is 4 lots, right? I
Yes,
just wanted,
yeah.
it said 5.
Well, yeah, that's it.
Just, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
No, yeah. So, I mean, like I said, we're just looking for clarification since it's just not really clear from the flag lot standpoint in the subdivision ordinance at this point. And, if we have some clear direction, I can go back to our client and get a game plan to come before you with what's
I think the
permissible.
stormwater is going to have to be addressed on
Yeah.
West Street before anything else gets built. That seems to be the consensus of people that live there, that drive through the high waters, whatever.
So is there any direction other than, I heard a couple, we're not fans of flag lots, but,
Well, I'd say if they got the land, run the town street in there and make it a subdivision like subdivisions come to us all the time. If that's what they can do, if that's illegal, we can't hardly hold that up if they meet all requirements for that.
no, I mean, what this option basically grants them, because listen, we could come in here with the minimum lot width being 40 feet. I could come in here and actually do 3 lots. This gives them the ability to pick up that fourth lot. That's,
But,
and without building a street, without building a street. Or we could, yes, build
I
a
understand,
street.
if we do that for them, we gotta do it for everybody else. And that's not what we do.
Well, I mean, I'm just, again, I'm trying to clarify, it doesn't say.
You're perfect, I get it, I get it.
It doesn't say you, in the subdivision ordinance, that you can't do a flag lot. So, you know, it does reference that you can do flag lots because the definition's in there. The only place it says you can't do a flag lot is in the historic district. You see what I mean?
I see what you're saying, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna find out what you mean.
Yeah. That's where I'm coming from, you know.
I just, you know, I don't think it would be, I get it, it's not a bad look, it's not a bad place, but if we open the door to that, everybody's going to want it.
Well, yeah, it'd have to meet minimum lot standards. I mean, that's where a subdivision basically comes into, you know, whether it's approved or not. Any subdivision's got to meet minimum lot requirements. Do you have the size? Do you have the width? You know, if it is, I mean, we're not talking about architecturals or the issues that we face on other projects. If it meets the standard lot requirements, then it should be a pretty straightforward process and something that shouldn't be, just because we don't like flag lots. I mean, if we don't like flag lots, it should pretty much in the ordinance say we don't allow flag lots. But I don't see that right now. So that's why, you know, again, we don't want to propose anything that's the town's adamantly against, but, you know, this is the highest and best use for this property for our client.
For your client.
Well,
You
yeah,
get that.
that's, yes.
Yeah.
And that's why we want to propose it.
Any comments from the public? Name and street, please, Ed.
With your indulgence, I may speak a little bit longer than the average public comment.
What's new?
I can stand up here or I can go up there.
All right, get to it, son.
Okay. Just, I have fighting words and I have just an observation. You might remember that I subdivided a few years ago, and I went through precisely this question of what the frontage needed to be left on the street and what the easement needed to be in order to construct a private road to serve a subdivision that I have no intention of ever building, but just to have that in my pocket just in case. I met a couple of times with Dave Engelhardt, exchanged a lot of email. I discussed it with the senior most person in planning and zoning in Berlin in terms of length of experience, who's my neighbor. The three of us discussed it, and the answer was 35 feet. So when I saw this coming before you guys with that 20-foot easement for a road, my first thought was, well, hell, why did I get the answer 35 feet not very long ago for precisely this type of scenario, although I could provide a second access. It wouldn't necessarily be a flag lot. So I just wanted to raise that in terms of procedure, in terms of, you know, it makes me a little bit, it kind of shocked me to see the idea of a 20-foot road coming up before the Planning Commission, having very recently gone through this with the powers that be and been told very clearly that 35 feet was what was needed. That's the first. The second, I mean, thank you, Chris, for raising the issue, but for me, this is the most important thing, and this is something that I feel very strongly about and I'm willing to act very strongly about. Bottle Branch is maxed out. The town has known for more than 30 years that the culverts under Route 113 are undersized. And what this means is that new water that is generated by development in the Bottle Branch watershed, if it can't pool where it does, which is obviously a major problem up there, it goes to me and it floods my land. The Corps of Engineers study indicates that wetlands are being created on my land due to development that is being approved upstream. I have heard it said by some people that the state takes care of this for us. That is absolutely wrong. I have examined every building permit issued in the Bottle Branch drainage from middle of 2019 to the middle of 2023. 119 building permits. 117 of them have no requirements for stormwater mitigation whatsoever. When you talk about doing a subdivision and stormwater mitigation, I think some people get confused. Like what happened on Westminster is that stormwater retention pond is sized for the road, not for the houses. And then all the houses went in there and they generated a huge amount of runoff. And you can see the result, right? So with this development in particular, you're right on the bank of Bottle Branch. That water is coming straight to me. And that water, if a subdivision such as this one is approved, that does not have 100% on-site water retention, that means the road, that means the sidewalks, that means any infrastructure, that means all of the houses that are built, the driveways, the garages, and what happens after people build houses. They want a pool, they want a deck, they want the plastic house from Home Depot, they want the man cave, and all of this stuff. So in this sort of scenario, if you do not have covenants or a requirement that any and all structures be 100% on-site mitigated in perpetuity, what you're doing is you're flooding me. And my understanding in the law is that I have a right not to be deliberately flooded. And this is a situation that has been ongoing for 30 years. My father began to raise it with the town, no action. I've been raising it with the town for 8 or 9 years, no action. I want to make it clear, Bottle Branch is maxed out, and my view of anything like this being approved until the town properly regulates impervious cover in development, and unless that development had 100% retention of all new stormwater generated, my view is that it is potentially legally actionable. And I don't want to do that, but I've been talking to the town for years, and nothing changes, and stuff like this comes up, and nobody puts their hand up and says,
No.
wait a minute, we got a problem already, we can't continue to do this because we're flooding people. That's my 2 cents on that.
Well, you say your beef is with the town, and I understand what you're saying, but your problem is State Highway will not take care of the problem. They are the problem with the 1/3.
The
But the problem is, with the state, I understand it's hard to do, to do that, but I would think you'd be on your representatives to take care of that or make sure that happens, because they're causing the problem. The town of Berlin is going to grow, everything's going to grow around here, but they have a very viable a solution to that problem that's going to cost them. But it's on them because they're causing the problem.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to disagree with you.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the reasons why. The town approved houses being constructed on Decatur Street that are in like a 1-minute flood zone. If you, right now, because of the town's approval of those houses on Decatur Street, and I also want to say that wooded area that partially belongs to me through which Bottle Branch, even the Corps of Engineers said, from an environmental perspective, it should be preserved. And the Corps of Engineers is not known for hugging trees. So if you went in there right now, that ship has sailed. If the town had acted 30 years ago, we might have been able to fix it that way. If you went in there right now and you put in the big fat stormwater drain that would cause Bottle Branch to flow much more, you're going to have to condemn a half a dozen houses on Decatur Street.
Well,
They're going to go underwater. But let me say one more thing. It doesn't matter, as far as I understand the law, that culvert, right? If the town's actions dump stormwater on me, I have a right not to have stormwater being dumped on it.
Let me ask you-
And the solution is something that the town is gonna have to do, because I can't convince the state.
Let me ask you a
to do
question.
that. Town's gonna have to do it.
Of 30 years
It
of
doesn't work.
the flooding there, how much wetlands has it created so far? How many acres?
The legal definition of a wetland is so complex and the delineation
I
is so
understand.
complex that I don't know.
So where that water is backing up on those culverts, would you be willing to lease or sell the town enough property to build a holding pond on an event that's so big that it floods you that it could hold that water and drain it off slowly after the event? I mean, that's a solution.
So a couple observations. There's a few things going on. One is that the town is working on a property purchase that might be very useful in improving the situation on Bottle Branch overall. And for some reason, they want to be extremely secretive about it. I know about it. I think a lot of people know about it, but I've been told that I'm not allowed to talk about it. So there is.
You're like Donald Trump, you've been guided.
So there is a possibility for the upstream conditions to be improved a lot through land purchases and installation of a pond.
Well, I'm asking you, would you be?
Let me say this, my understanding is probably within a few months, you're gonna see a big proposal for a big bunch of new stuff to go in near Decatur Park. To the extent that that drains into Bottle Branch, first of all, the Decatur Park already is a swamp sometimes. That water is going towards me. Now, some of it, those lots, it's weird there. Some of it goes one way, some of it goes the other. I don't know. And that goes on to me, wait, hold on, Newt.
No, I understand.
That goes on to me, and it goes into an agricultural drainage ditch that the town does not have an easement for.
But are you willing to sell the town or lease the town enough property to build a holding pond that then holds water in these big events that are flooding you, so that that'll hold that water during that event, and then after the event's over, it drains off slowly and it gets handled, and you don't get flooded? Are you willing to do that?
The town is not, I am potentially willing to do something that would improve the situation, but the town has not proven itself to be a reliable partner in that sort of thing. So I wouldn't, if I were to do something like that, it would not be an agreement with the town, because the knowledge base to manage that sort of thing does not exist in town staff, and the town is not a reliable partner.
Well,
but I mentioned something that's important that I want to register in people's heads now. The town routes a big chunk of stormwater over my land in an area that is about to be developed, and they do not have an easement. And I am not interested in giving developers free stormwater service. All right?
good.
Anyone else from the public have any comments? Sir, back there.
Glenn
Name and
Davis.
street, please.
Glenn Davis, 200 South Main Street. I think the concept of it, I think it's a slippery slope. I think if we start to allow this to happen, we'd open up a can of worms like you suggested. You drive down Burley Street and all those properties on the south side of Burley Street have very deep lots. If we allow this to happen, every one of them could come in and say, well, I want to build 2 houses in the back of my lot. What's to stop that? If we're going to bend to this, I don't want to sound cruel, but the owners that bought the property that don't live here, then I can't be held accountable for their poor investment. I don't know why we have to bend to make this a profit center for them. I just think it's the wrong type of property development that we're looking for in town.
Anyone else have any comments?
Marie View on West Street. 2 things. To me, the objections to this property are counter to the intent of your comprehensive plan or whatever it is that you work on that's talking about infill growth. To me, what is the difference between having this type of subdivision or allowing some other property to develop another bigger property, probably with maybe just a little bit bigger lots? I'm not crazy about the design of this one. I think it should be required to have a town road maintained by the town, not this, because all this is going to be is a headache for your planning commission and staff like 5 years down the road, when these people move in and figure out that that road, it needs maintenance and who's doing it. Those are the things that you need to look at. But as far as the infill, I don't see the difference. And your concern about the big lots, I thought that was the whole point of what we were talking about, to control the growth of Berlin on the outside and fill from the in. So what's the big deal? I mean, I don't think it needs to have 4 lots there. I think 3 would be sufficient with a regular road and sidewalks. I mean, just some planning on something like that, but otherwise, I don't see an issue with it. And as far as Bottle Branch, that affects, I'm way up at the top of West Street. And that ditch goes to the back of my property. And to one of our commissioners who says about how someone that's bought a property and expects it to have a certain look. When I bought my property, there was nobody on the left of me. It was a farm field. There was nobody in front of me. It was a farm field. There was nobody behind me. It was a farm field. So I didn't have, I still had some flooding from the wetlands that turned into Buckingham Estates, but I didn't have the issues. Now you have all of that water. Everything that's up at that end comes to Bottle Branch. I've walked it. I've seen it. You've got the holding pond in Henry's Mill, or whatever, Green Mill, I don't know which one's which. That drains into Bottle Branch. You have Worcester Country School going into the pond at Westminster, which comes to West Street, which goes into Bottle Branch. So, yeah, you got to be careful with what you're putting in there and requirements. And one other issue, on the street, one house was put in. They were required to put in a stormwater swale in their front yard. It's the only house on West Street that has that. And it was because they had a back building and a road. They put all this at one time. So they were required, because of stormwater, to put this swale in their front yard. But you look at every other house on that side, and they have the same size building, they have the same kind of driveway, they have porches and sheds that were all put in, but at different times. So we are not paying attention to stormwater management in the least in this town. And to pretend that we are is incredibly aggravating, as you can tell. That's all.
Anyone else in the public have any comments? Chris, you do.
If I can clarify just a couple things based on the comments. First and foremost, I sympathize with, I understand, being, here with my business in Berlin, that there's a lot of talk about flooding issues in Berlin. We can't, as designers, address everything off-site that probably needs to be done. But I will say, with all due respect, when we do these projects and we get these approved as subdivisions and we do the stormwater management systems, we don't just take into account the roads. It's required that we take into account the whole development and the ultimate development with the houses, the roads, the sidewalks. So, that's not a clear representation of how stormwater is done, we would address stormwater with this project. It is helpful that we do have an adjacent ditch that can be a sufficient outfall for the project. As far as the roads, my understanding to date, in every project we've come before this town, the town wanted private roads. They did not want any more town roads. So if that's the case, what we're trying to do here is, you know, do we want to make affordable infill properties in Berlin? Or do we want to raise the price of the infrastructure to where the lot costs got to substantially go up?
The
You know,
subdivision
they,
would be your roads though, right?
what's that?
Sorry to cut you off, but the subdivision would be your roads.
Yes, they would be private
Yeah,
roads
private.
regardless.
Okay, I'm just.
So, you know, those are the questions we got to, I guess, ask. You know, it's infill. They meet the minimum lot requirements from a size standpoint. You know, it's just what burden do we want to put on, you know, the owner, the developer of such a project. I mean, 4 lots on 2.5 acres seems pretty reasonable. But, you know, like I said, we have to go by, you know, what we think we can get support from you guys. You know, if that's, you know, abandoning, you know, maybe a lot, so be it. It'd be a shame because we only have so many infill properties in Berlin. But, you know, we'll, you know, take it this whatever direction you guys point us in.
Who's going to be maintaining the roads?
It would be the 4-lot association at this point.
This is going to be an HOA?
Anytime you have, you know, an easement property or an shared access road, it's a shared expense by association.
Right, because I'm concerned about emergency vehicles in the wintertime, you know, plowing snow.
Have to have an agreement to, you know, provide that service. Those are conditions you can put on any approval. You know, it's the same thing. Again, this is no different if we develop this with a full-blown town road with sidewalks. It'd be a private road. You're still not, you know, without the association providing the plowing service, it's still not going to get, you know, taken care of. So that doesn't change.
Chris, you know, you said 2.5 acres sounds good for 4. You know, every property, every project is site-specific.
Yeah.
And this is a very difficult thing to pull off with 4.
Well,
Just a
I can-
generalization of we have enough.
Obviously, I
properties that
can
we
pull it off
You know.
from a layout standpoint.
Well, but permit, that's another.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm asking, you know, you guys, where, you know, in the code, you know, if there's not really a specified width for the flag portion of a lot, and it's only not permitted in the historic district, what's to say this isn't compliant?
Well, I think, I mean, you keep saying that, but subdivision laws take over, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
that's
have
what I'm
minimum
saying.
standards for subdivision, you're trying to create a subdivision, so then you have to meet the town standards to create that subdivision.
And this maxes it out without going there. So this is less input for more profit. So I get why you're trying that first.
Like I said, I mean, I'm looking for clarification, I guess, on the ordinance. That's all, really. I mean,
I just said it,
if
I just said it.
But it doesn't
Do a
mean- you said
standard-
your opinion is-
It's not my opinion, you're creating a subdivision. Meet the town standards for your subdivisions, jam as many lots in there as you can, we'll look at it.
Okay.
I mean, we
Understand.
can't provide clarification on ordinance.
Dave could, yeah, we couldn't find any clarification on the flag lot.
Yeah, I looked at it.
Well, I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Maybe there's no such thing as flag lots, I mean, because flag lots then become town subdivisions, and so, then you have to meet subdivision requirements. That's why we have subdivision law, that's why there's subdivision code in the code.
There's a flag lot in your definitions of permitted uses, and the only place a flag lot is not allowed is in the historic district, but yet it doesn't tell you what the flag width has to be. So-
It's enough to know you can't have it, so whatever you think it is, it can't happen. You gotta have a town, if you're gonna do what you're doing here, you need to have a town-approved subdivision, it
That's
meets
what we're-
subdivision requirements.
Well, that's what I'm doing. I mean, listen, I mean, I guess, you know, I'll go back and look at this. You know, if we're saying it's simply what's based on the subdivision regulations, I'll make that submittal request based on exactly what I
I
read.
mean, if you can do a legal subdivision and we approve it, I mean, that, you meet, they, in my opinion, they have a right, if they have the zone, I mean, the zoning, which I think we do, they have a right to put a subdivision.
I agree. Well, I think we're on the same page. The only thing we're saying is, there's no definition on what the width of a flag lot is, like you
Forget
can
flag
find.
lot, forget flag lot. There's, flag lots are, in my opinion,
I mean, you're saying we gotta stick with the ordinance, though, it says flag lots can happen.
it didn't say flag lots could happen. It said
It says they
weren't-
can't happen, and the only place they can happen is in the historic district.
The only place that.
The only place a flag lot.
Where in the code did it say they can happen?
Well, it's just.
Well, it's in the definition.
Just mentioned there.
In the general definitions is what a flag lot is.
What is it?
Does it need a certain frontage? Is that why there's 25 feet? I didn't see any of that. Did you pick 25 feet because you found it somewhere?
Well, no, we've historically done those at 25.
I mean, so that was just a number that you used, right?
Section 108-5 definition, flag lot means a polygonal shaped lot that has the appearance of a flag with a staff or pen handle in which the handle or the staff is used to the point of a street or road. The term flag lot or pen handle are synonymous.
Okay, what's your requirements for flag lot? How much road?
That's what I'm asking.
How much
That
road
doesn't
frontage you got?
give us any.
So it has to be time, I mean, a time subdivision can be called a flag lot if it meets the requirements for a subdivision. I mean, it looks like a flag, it's got a road and then it's got a square lot. If you do that under town standards, then
That's
you
what
do
this
it.
is, that's what I got there, that's what the.
Not what a 20-foot road, you don't, not 20-foot wide road.
The road has nothing to do with a flag lot.
The road doesn't meet the standards.
The road does meet your
It's not
standards.
25 foot, that's an alley.
20 foot.
20 foot.
20 foot, 20 foot's an
Access
alley, that's
drive.
what it says in the code.
Okay, well, let me read that section.
We're gonna get your lawyers up there.
I put out a mark on
20
it.
foot for an alley, 24 foot for a minor, 35 foot for a major, yeah, we know it.
Well, listen, I can make that a 24-foot private road. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, well, it says 20 here, so.
Well, I know, because, I mean, it does say you can have a 20-foot wide access drive in your code with even parking on one side.
I read that, yeah, know that.
Access to what?
An access road.
To what?
Individual lots. 106 something.
You got plenty of room for an access road.
Oh, yeah, you can make the road to 50 feet if you want 50
Okay,
feet. It's
okay.
more pervious area.
So then the
I mean,
real.
that's all that does.
Then the real question then, I mean, that flag lot strip could be common area, whatever.
Well, typically, what, the reason you're doing a flag lot is you've got to create the flag, because technically to record a fee simple lot, you've got to have frontage on a public street.
Yeah.
So that's what the flag.
It's gotta be a
accomplishes.
public street, it couldn't be the private street coming in.
We don't really in town have any more public streets, they're all private streets. So that's what I'm saying, if you think about everything in big picture, you get the same thing. You know, just because you can't, you know, you won't see those flags on the ground, same thing if I do it right away in there, you don't see it. It just adds more cost, makes the lots more expensive. You know, that's what it basically comes down to. But if we can't really get clarification, I guess, you know, on the flag width, as Newt says, I just basically submit a subdivision and see if it's in the opinion of the town, it's compliant or not. I think that's the only place I can go.
So you want to come back?
I always come back.
He's got a couple lawyers paying his bills, he'll be back as long as he needs to be.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
That goes,
You know, I'm just really confused by this discussion. I went through all of this with the planning director and chair of the appeals board a couple of years ago. All of this stuff, all this confusion about all this stuff, and I got a damn clear answer from the town of Berlin, and it was 35. And I am really confused as to now, evidently, if you present one drawing to the planning commission, everything else gets thrown out the window. This is very confusing. But I raise that mainly as I don't have any hard idea about how wide a road should be, but I raise that mainly as a procedural concern. How many other people have gone in, like me, and tried to establish what this width is, and were told 35 by the planning director and by the chair of the Board of Appeals, and then maybe that's not true. It's kind of confusing. But the other thing is that when you talk about doing the stormwater, I think it's really important to be clear what that means. Like, what's your outfall pipe doing if you're doing the stormwater at 100%? It's only for the 500-year storm or what? Right? Because if you're doing the stormwater at 100% and not generating new runoff, you don't need an outfall pipe.
So you always.
You always need an outfall pipe.
All of
No, wait. So, no, but it's because it's important, because I hear very frequently when I talk to people, they say things like, oh, well, the state requires us to do the stormwater. The stormwater is going to be done. You look, I pulled 119 permits that involve new impervious cover in the town of Berlin in the Bottle Branch drainage. 117 of them had no provisions for stormwater whatsoever. So, I think it's important to be really clear what you're actually talking about when somebody says, oh, the state makes us do the stormwater. Oh, when we do the subdivision, we're going to do the stormwater. Well, they did that at Westminster, and they did that at Henry's Green, and look what we got. So you need to be very careful.
All right, next item on the agenda is for discussion of accessory dwelling units, including tiny houses. Is there anybody here that was here to talk about it, or is that just for us?
Well, I got a question. Who put this on the agenda?
Didn't you do that, Nick?
No, I'm wondering who put it on
No,
the agenda.
I wanted to talk about it.
Oh, so that's fine.
Yeah, it was an issue that come up, and people are circling around Berlin with these. And I think we've kicked the can down the line about EDUs. I know Maryland's big on it. So it doesn't have to be a long discussion point, but, is there anyone here for the tiny homes, or is it just us? I'm not discussing. Are you representing the tiny home, sort of? All right, so, Mary, do you have any breakdown of what the tiny home's consisting of, or?
There was, from my understanding, there was one individual who expressed very preliminary interest in possibly putting a tiny home on water. But
all by itself? All by itself?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my understanding.
Okay.
But I do know that accessory dwelling units, of course, have been.
Well, Dave, what's his name around here on Broad Street did that years ago, didn't he? Didn't he have a little thing on him over there? They got to work for Dave.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
He had one forever over there.
Yeah, Dave Rabanson.
Yeah, nobody did anything with that, but.
Well, it don't look like that.
No, that's a mobile home, that ain't a tiny house. That's an RV dressed up look like a house.
Well, I think the state's last meeting on the ADU thing is on May 21st. The Zoom meeting so I say we table it till then.
I mean, is there any initial thoughts on the tiny homes in Berlin?
Yeah, I got a lot of initial thoughts.
I mean, no, realistically, I don't personally like seeing this. If we're talking about putting this on a lot, I'm not.
When you say this, what are you talking about? This thing here?
Yes.
Really?
So, they're not permanent. They're not permanent structures, so I don't even know if that's allowed in our code for having a non-permanent structure in a lot.
Matt, I was asked to just prepare some basic material to start a discussion of this topic.
Yeah.
Not to get any conclusion. It is not well addressed in the code today, so I was asked, hey, at least get a discussion started to try and be proactive, as tiny homes and accessory building structures are probably coming our direction.
So Rick,
anyone who doesn't know, Rick has been helping out with the planning and zoning.
Rick, in your delving into this in the code, did you see any minimum square footage standards in housing?
No.
So that would...
Throughout all of the code, there is no minimum for the square footage to be built.
Right.
The only size requirement I was able to find anywhere is with regard to a townhouse. Townhouses are to have a minimum of 18 feet across the front and 500 square feet. That's the only reference I could find. As Mary had said, this was an informal request to put this on a lot. That lot has its own issues. It has no frontage at all today, but that's a separate item for this person, should they decide they want to move forward. But, just like the discussion of tonight about streets, in your packet, you'll see, there's a list of issues throughout the code where alley is defined several different ways. It's not even consistent within the code, let alone someone attempting to understand it. So I believe the request to try and start something tonight with the commission is on this subject, to try and get ahead of that, so that you have clear answers and directions as you go forward. And more than likely, it's going to result, well, it's a personal projection. I don't want to give too many opinions, but, some discussion, some guidance and direction from in here that ultimately becomes code that goes to mayor and council. Or I believe you will struggle with this in the not too distant future. So I did put some things together, but I have been away, so this hasn't reached you yet. But as mentioned, the single informal request, as also already mentioned, Town of Berlin doesn't really specifically deal with the size of dwelling units, other than what I already referenced with regard to townhomes. So a tiny house, a term that's in popular use, is completely undefined in our code.
I'm sorry, what was that term?
Tiny house.
No, you said something used?
Undefined.
Undefined.
Can you come up front so we can hear you better, please?
Sure. We like your conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the discussion would be both about tiny houses and also accessory dwelling units, which next month may become much more important to you. With regard to accessory dwelling units, Maryland General Assembly passed Senate Bill 382 in 2023, establishing a task force to look at accessory dwelling units on a statewide basis. Their preliminary report came out in November of '23. It basically just outlines what their process is going to be. It's not telling you much, but their final report comes out next month. That final report, from what I can see, looks like it's even going to contain, or likely could contain, draft language that you all might want to start looking at and decide, does this fit Town of Berlin? Much like what was done for stormwater throughout the state and in Town of Berlin. And even that doesn't bring clarity, as we saw earlier this evening.
Well, from what you've seen about the ADUs, it's this legislature, I mean, each town can do, in their code, they can do what they want in terms of negating those or accepting those, is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. So the idea of this kind of discussion is, what tools do you all need in the toolbox to make your life easier as people come in front of you? And so there's no other purpose tonight other than introduce a topic, raise some common vocabulary, and just start the idea of thinking about this so that, Newt, as you said, the town can be clear about what it is that it wants when it comes to these two subjects, tiny homes, for lack of a better term, and accessory dwelling units. 611 is not that far away. It surprised me at how much time had gone by in between times I had driven down 611. Have you seen the subdivision of essentially units like this over in West Ocean City? So I went looking to Worcester County, since West OC is, I guess, still not incorporated, and there's no guidance there to help us either. But you see what they got.
Yeah.
The question is that what we want? And I'm not trying to push or drive anything. In the town code, there is one reference to limited dwelling in 108-5. In 108-5, it just gives a definition of what is a limited dwelling. It doesn't say whether or not you can have one, just like definition of a flag lot does not say whether or not you can have one. It merely defines it. It's not addressed elsewhere in the code in that case, or in this one. But a limited dwelling means a dwelling unit consisting of no more than 2 rooms, exclusive of bath facilities, designed or intended for retirement living or temporary assisted living, including nursing homes, assisted living facilities, retirement housing, pretty broad, having shared dining and recreational facilities. That unit, which doesn't seem to be well received, comes pretty daggone close to meeting that limited dwelling because it's only 2 rooms exclusive of the bath facilities. Anyway, there's another interesting thing. In 108-464, they use the term tourist homes. This is in our own code. Tourist homes and produce stands, they go together somehow. That's the exact punctuation. But tourist home is not otherwise defined anywhere in our current code. So I'm not sure what that means. I'm not looking to resolve any of this tonight. 108-325 does talk about, single-family dwellings, but there is no size requirement. Single-family dwellings are permitted in R2, R1, R2, R3, and R4. So as this issue begins to move forward, right now you would be subject to looking at tiny homes in any one of those residential districts with no means to say that that's what we're looking for, that's acceptable, that's a standard we want, don't want. It's not there right now. And then with regard to accessory dwelling units, my understanding of why the state is moving in this direction is all consistent with increasing housing stock, increasing infill,
Affordable housing, I think, is
affordable
also.
housing, it's all tied up there. This is coming, and you all are the front line, so the purpose of tonight was just to introduce the topic and start talking about finding which way the town of Berlin wants.
Well, since it's on the agenda, the ADU thing, I can simply say that I can think of nothing worse that would ruin the quality of life for people in this town to have a rental unit or an ADU in everybody's backyard. That means, also I think it goes against the law because people in this town, a lot of people, most people, bought their property, an R1 property, with the expectation of having quiet enjoyment of that property. And it's unfair if their neighbor puts a rental unit in their backyard. That affects their quality of life tremendously if they don't want it. It just affects it. So I think that once the residents of this town figure this out, that this is coming, I think they're going to be wholly against the ADU thing, because then you're going to have bedroom community for Ocean City Health. You're going to have all kinds of stuff in here that we've been trying to keep out in terms of trying to keep a nice quiet town. And I'm not going to trust my neighbor to be a good landlord. I don't want to have to do that. It's not my. But it's not fair to the person who bought R1 property with expectation of having quiet enjoyment of that property, and all of a sudden they said he could have a rental unit in the backyard and put anybody in there at any time, or they can put another family there where you got kids running all over the place and trust your neighbor to be a good landlord. It's ludicrous.
Please understand, I'm not advocating.
No, I understand. I'm not fussing at you, but I'm just telling you.
No, but you did a wonderful job of making my point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You trust your neighbor to be a good neighbor? Because I have.
But I don't have to deal with him. I don't have to deal with the Hottentots he's got in the backyard.
So you would still only have to deal with them as the landlord?
Say again?
You would still only have to deal with them.
I can't trust my landlord to be a good landlord.
My
neighbor to be a good landlord. So why would I want him in that position?
Yeah, I'm just saying,
So I think what I would be advocating is that we begin to start considering putting tools in the toolbox to deal with this as it comes before you. and just to separate the two a little bit, when it comes to, well, someone looked at that and said, well, that looks like a mobile home, I can't disagree with that, but dealing with the tiny houses, you know, items for discussion from you all, you know, what is a minimum square footage for R1, 2, 3, and 4? You know, what foundation type would or should be the requirement? Utility connections, you know, obviously I think pretty much elsewhere in the standard it says if you're going to be in town on a town road, you're going to have town water and sewer. And parking, and, you know, just, you know, food for thought. That's all that tonight is about. Just to say something a little bit differently about accessory dwelling units, though. I first saw the town of Berlin the 1980s after the hotel had been redone. Didn't get to see it when it was a whorehouse and probably just as well off. But one of the things that I found to be quaint about Berlin is I found, huh?
What was it? Yeah, I thought
it was could have been. I wasn't here.
How would you know that?
But you know, one of the things that I found quaint when I noticed when I first saw Berlin is that Berlin doesn't, from back that earlier period, have quite a number of accessory dwelling units on residential properties. That fell out of favor. They haven't been created. They're not approved. They don't continue forward today. But, you know, pressure from the state, you know, is that going to come? I think it will. I think our current Secretary of Housing and Community Development had something to say. He would push pretty hard.
Yeah, well, you know what, we have our opinions here too, and it's not, you know, they're doing it because they don't want sprawl. I don't blame them, but this is what they think is the only solution, you know, in quote unquote affordable housing, but they have no right to mandate that the person who owns a piece of property.
I don't disagree. I believe the administrator.
I mean, I just, so, you know, old Rich Colburn, I think it was in Dorchester County, when he was the senator, he wanted a secession from the state anyway. But he said, whatever they're saying over there, we should be doing the exact opposite. And he was exactly right.
Politics haven't changed, have they? Yeah, but I believe the reason the administrator probably asked me to do this is to just say, think about tools in the toolbox.
Well, we need to be ready for it. A couple of comments from the public. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'm listening to you guys up there talking about this. But you know what? You're considering, and I hate to say this, but this is my opinion. You have two communities. Our needs on the east side is totally different than what west side. And you're speaking like Martin. Well, we supposed to be a part of the town too. And what I'm hearing, you haven't taken any considerations about the needs on the east side. You know, doggone well, we cannot compete with this side of town. At least you should know. Now, I'm saying it needs to be investigated. It needs to be researched. I'm not saying go ahead on to it. We've got to find a balance of how to work to where the east side can continue to survive, because there's a great need for housing. I was approached before I came to this meeting. A young man said, oh, they're going to be talking about the tiny houses. I said, I don't know nothing about that. He said, well, I would like to see, but because he couldn't be here tonight, he was working. He said, because my son, I got to find a place to put, and I have a piece of property. And so we got to look into these things. No, the west side don't need it. But you can't say that the east side don't need it either. You got to look at the whole picture. My brother knew. Okay, my brother? Okay, that's all.
So it was very confusing at the beginning of the discussion, but I guess it's like two separate things. Are these approved for a single family home on a lot, and then you have the ADU thing? And I don't really have a big opinion about that being allowed on the single family, but I don't love it, but again, you have to make rules, I guess. But the ADU thing, I understand what you're saying, because I had a problem with Airbnbs going everywhere. So I understand the neighborly thing of not wanting a whole bunch of noise and a whole bunch of new people, but there are situations, like I think you were saying, and there's people who have children, maybe have disabilities, and they need somewhere to live when they're adults. So you could think about making regulations that wouldn't allow renting it. Maybe it has to be a family type situation. I don't know how it would work, but
Well-
you have the parking and you have the space and you have all that, because there are a ton of ADUs already.
Understand, I understand. I know there's a lot of non-compliant, but in your situation, you make a good point about a child that's disabled and you want, but if your living quarters for that child is connected to your house, it's perfectly legal. It has to be connected to the house.
But what if your lot doesn't allow that, but you could have it in the
If
back
you got room for an
parking lot?
ADU, you got room enough to put something, an addition on your house, I would imagine.
No, that's not true at all in this case.
Actually, the state's definition of ADU is internal, meaning it could be the attic or basement, for example, attached, or freestanding. They're going to address all three configurations.
Anyone else have any comments?
When I look at this, I think, what is worse, this or a microtel on that property? You know, this would help the people on that side have affordable housing. The microtel is not going to do anything for anybody except for the people that own it. And as far as the properties and having neighbors and all that, I've lived here long enough, I think that whole argument is bullshit. And I have neighbors that put in a pool.
Which argument is that you think is bull?
About the ADU, and whether your neighbors are putting that in to annoy you. When
I didn't say
you
they're
can
gonna put it in to annoy me. I
have,
said
that's
if they put it
basically
in,
what
put it
you're
in.
saying. And I've had neighbors that, when I moved in, they didn't have a pool. Now they have a pool. When they moved in, they didn't have a gigantic garage in the back. Now they do. So, you know, that's a silly argument as far as I'm concerned. You don't have control over what other people are doing next to you, regardless of what you call it.
That's true. Well, with the argument that you make, if you had an ADU, if I had an ADU beside me and a family moved in there with 4 kids, or 2 kids, or 3 kids, and I want to go out on my back patio and have a glass of heart medicine one night, and I'm sitting there trying to enjoy things and listen to the birds and whatever, and they're running all around screaming and hollering, and that adds to the, up front, my landlord's he's got 2 or 3 of them, and they're running all around. It's going to ruin the quality of life for people in this town. And I can tell you, I've been here long enough, a lot longer than you, to know what this town used to be like. And I can tell you that there's nothing would be more detrimental to the quality of life of the people in this town, because you're dependent on everybody to be a landlord. And believe me, everybody can't be a landlord.
I still don't agree
And a
with
lot of
that.
them come at you, well, I want my mother-in-law there. Well, she ain't gonna live forever either. So then what are you gonna do? You're gonna rent it? You're gonna let your slow-leak brother in there to live or whatever? You just, you know, so it's just.
So how about if I'm in a property and the people that live next to me are retired citizens, and then they leave, and they come in, a new family comes in with 5 kids?
That's a single-family dwelling.
Right.
Not
But
with-
I
not with a
can't sit
relative
out my
back.
yard now and have my little heart medicine and enjoy it like I did when I bought my house. I mean, your argument is specious.
No, I guess it's falling on deaf ears with you, but.
Yes.
If you want one beside you, then have at it, but I don't want it beside me necessarily.
Don't forget the yapping dog with at least 2/3 of every house that comes in.
Right.
It's not the kids, it's the dogs.
I mean, you don't have any control over that.
Don't forget
Cats are
cats.
okay, they don't bark.
You got control over it, you don't let it happen in the first place.
Kill
Chickens are
everything.
good, I like chickens, I got chickens next door, they're cool.
Is there any other comments from the public?
I
Samantha Pielstick, I live at 3 Cave Street on the east side of 113. And my house is an Aneco home, and I have photos of it when it was brought onto my lot, and it was built in a factory. And so my understanding is those are built in a factory and brought onto a lot and put onto a foundation. So I'm not quite certain how that's vastly different. I don't understand how that's vastly different from my modular home. that was
That's what
built.
we're trying to determine.
And so my point is, I'm very interested in, as you guys know, I've been coming to the meetings because I'm very interested in the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan talks for infill. The comprehensive plan talks for affordable housing. The comprehensive plan, you guys want to come up with ways that we're going to do this as we go forward in Berlin, which I'm very, very interested in. So I came tonight because, to me, that's one of the answers, is these smaller units that can be put on the back of someone's lot that can provide affordable housing. Possibly not rentals because we don't like children, but if we have backyards and people want to increase the value of their property by adding an accessory dwelling unit, and the state is helping to kind of, I think the words were, bring this to town whether you like it or not, then we need to just I agree with Rick that we need to get ahead of this. We need to decide what this is going to be and give some very good clarity for what the town is going to allow. And I agree with his point. We need to have this is okay here, but maybe not here, and sort of define it by your zoning. Maybe R1 is not allowed an accessory dwelling unit, but another R would be allowed. And so something like that. But I think that my point in coming to this meeting tonight was to hear how you're going to be allowing these, because I do see these as, I mean, I'm watching tons of television shows where the generation that is coming up right now loves this concept. They don't want to own a big house. They don't want 4,000 square feet. The gentleman that you guys paid to have come and speak at the library, he was talking about that the large home is the thing of the past. The new upcoming, what the young people want is a small home because they want to travel. They don't want all the maintenance. They don't want to take care of a home. So I sincerely came to this meeting tonight hoping to help move this thing forward so that we do know what's allowed, because like you, I walk the town all the time and I'm like, oh, we can put a garage unit there, because I think that's a good way to do infill. But I just want to speak that point to you that I am pro infill, I am pro affordable housing, I am pro growth within the boundaries, as you've discussed many, many times. We just need to figure that out and define it so that people know what they're allowed to do.
I had a chance to sit with Mr. Giroux, the Donnie that came in here, the guy you referenced.
What?
The guy you referenced, the guy that came here, and spoke about it.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And I was talking to Mr. Thanani, nice fella, Said he came from a small town like I did. Said people helped him across the street there, they were very friendly. And I said, where are you from, buddy? And he said, it was some town in India, I can't remember, but I said, what was the population there? Oh, it was about 4 million. So this guy, I asked him, he said that nobody should live in a home that was over 800 square feet. And I said, well, where do you live, buddy? He said, Washington, D.C. I said, well, how big is your home? And he looked down and fiddled a minute, and he goes, 4,500 square feet. I said, what? He said, 4,500 square feet?
It's 4,800.
4,800. So, I mean, rules for thee, but not for me. And that's what you find out. That's what this Maryland legislature, that's by what they do.
He lives a mile from the White House.
Well, but
high rent district.
Let me say this. See, here's where I see it. When you pretty much have arrived in your life, you got plenty of money, or much money, and you got your properties, and you lay back, and you feel secure, yeah, that's the way you think, and that's the way it should be. Really, I agree with you, Newt. Yes, if that's for the west side. Now, on the east side, we got plenty of open land over there. I mean, there's plenty of it compared to the west side. Now, I know here I'm speaking from my truth. My truth is, I grew up struggling. I grew up, got to a point, had a little chance to get business going, got a little, and I've been around all of these issues pretty much all my life. Kids, family, all kinds of crap. And that's my life. So I don't have a problem with it, as long as we have public safety. To me, that's number one. We don't want crime getting out of hand.
Amen to that.
And you know what? What sets that agenda as far as people acting like human beings is the way they're treated. If they're treated by the government with being sensitive to their needs, and you can see that on the east side. You really can see that compared to some of these other communities. Let's just keep it on that road, because when people get all disappointed, can't find no housing, we don't have that many homeless. We got one guy running up and down the road, or two, that's homeless. He wants to be homeless, but he's mentally ill. And as a community, we love him. We give him work. He doesn't go. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing we are trying to maintain. So that's all I'm saying. Yes, you don't want, and I told you that some time ago when we talked, and you don't want it in your community. No, that's it. Keep it this way. But you got to realize you're dealing with two, pretty much, and I hate to say it, two different communities. Now, I don't know how we can regulate the zoning and all to address those, but that's what we got to come together and figure out. And I don't think it's difficult, because we got relationship. And we can sit down and talk with some sense. Every now and then I get a little warm, but I'm not really angry. It's a passion. So let's just keep it going. Let's just understand we're neighbors. And hey, and that's it. And we can make it happen.
Any comments from the staff? No. Any other comments from the chair?
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge Dave Englehart's passing. I mean, I was the chair of this commission the entire time except for his last meeting. I think he did a great job for the town. And he will be missed by me, and I'm sure everybody up here.
All I knew. He's the only person I can remember.
Oh, no, he will be missed.
Very good.
All right.
Can I make a comment about the ADUs? I've been watching the Maryland Department of Planning's webinars, I guess you call them. Learned quite a bit. And it's not like every house can now have an ADU in their backyard. This is why this is why they're having these things. Certain restrictions, certain lot sizes, certain zoning, all kinds of stuff that needs to be addressed. It's not like, oh, I'm going to turn my tool shed into an ADU now. It's not like that. We need to get ahead of it before it comes to us, and it is like that. So it's not as simple as just, I want one. And it isn't easy to get one. It's very expensive. You need to meet codes. You need to meet all kinds of things. That's why we need to have the discussions to learn about a type of housing that may be beneficial to young people. Hell, I might want to move into an ADU in my backyard when the house is too big for me. So there's all kinds of reasons to have them, but you just can't go one in your backyard and turn your tool shed into one. It's not that easy. Yeah.
And to the point that the gentleman just made, about the east side of Berlin versus the west side of 113, is it possible, and I'm not looking for an answer right off the bat, but is it possible to regulate in different areas of Berlin?
It's by zoning.
So, to that point, if we need affordable housing, if that's desirable on the east side of 113, which he spoke towards, then why don't we do that? Can we do that? By the same token, the micro hotel that we just talked about ad nauseum at the beginning of the meeting, what are the thoughts and the opinions of the people on the east side of 113 that are living within it? Do they want it? And how do we get their opinion?
They were here.
I live on the corner of Washington.
They were here before.
So
They
it
didn't like
doesn't, it doesn't impact me.
There was only 3.
It impacts the
Yeah,
people
well,
that live on the other side of the highway.
They were against it.
And that should be part of the decision-making process for this, I think. By the same token, it should be part of the decision-making process on tiny homes and small affordable housing.
Exactly.
Well, the only way to do what you're asking, and I talked to Gabe a lot, you need to talk, but, I mean, you can carve out a special zoning designation for something, I don't know how you would phrase that for, and by making a certain designated zoning district for tiny houses or something, you can get that accomplished, wherever you want to put it, so
Well,
that's the key to that.
And that should be part of the overall plan and the growth of the town.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
I got a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.